Hey guys, I'm excited. Today I have my friend Brandy Anderson. She's on for her third episode here, which is a record. So congrats on that.
Thanks. It's great to be here, Kendall.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Yeah, Brandy was on a while back to talk about her theological and spiritual journey and talk about her grandmother. And then our second episode, we talked about Christ consciousness and other theological positions and how we think about them now, where we're at on our journey. And today we're talking about Brandy's new book. Brandy, what is that book called?
Yes, Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, and it'll be available on Amazon June 18th in Kindle and paperback.
Awesome. Yeah, so this episode will be more of a interview type about that book. So yeah, let's just get into it. So Brandy, how did you come to write this book?
Yeah, so I kind of went into my story a little bit on our first episode together, so I'll keep it brief, but I'll just say that I had a spiritual awakening in 2014 that sent me on a journey of seeking out ultimate truth. And after spending years in the church wrestling with theological and philosophical questions, I finally landed in a more contemplative space. I found mainstream Christian answers to existential questions just less than satisfying. So ultimately, I shifted away from the more mainstream version of Christianity and embraced a more mystical or experiential way of engaging with the faith. And it was within that space that I had a paranormal encounter that served to bring everything into sharp focus. When my grandmother passed away, she found a way to connect with us from the other side of the veil. And the entire experience has connected theological dots for me in profound ways. And as a result, I wrote a book, Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, where I share about my experience and some of the things that I have learned as a result. And my hope is to offer a sense of hope and peace to others who also wrestle with these same existential questions.
Yeah, great. Thanks for that. I did read the book and it was really great. I think it's really helpful for anybody who is a Christian and is looking for more nuance or a different perspective, or even someone who's just spiritual or someone who's interested in the spiritual, or even someone who is spiritual and wants to understand a little bit of, Christian theology and um, your take on it. So yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, so
Thank you.
yeah, you're welcome. From the book, I had just different questions that came up, and one of them was in the Bible it talks about men talking to spirits and kind of seem to warn against that. And so I was wondering what your take is on that.
Yeah, so well, that's a really good question. In the Old Testament, the Israelites were prohibited from consulting spirits. And it was just one of the many prohibitions for those people who were in a particular covenant with Yahweh. So we see that lots of things were considered off limits: eating shellfish, wearing mixed fabrics, planting mixed crops, working on the Sabbath, and the list goes on. So there were a lot of, those people, they were a people who were engaged in divination or casting lots, consulting spirits through mediums. So even the ephod that the priest wore was a divination tool. And the overall implication is that these people use divination and mediums to try and gain an advantage in life, to control or manipulate outcomes in battle, for instance. In other words, rather than trusting God or trusting the flow of the universe, they were attempting to predict the future and control outcomes. So the prohibition was about the people letting go and trusting in the benevolence of God. And it seems strange to me when people use divination tools today, even for that purpose, to predict the future or control outcomes, because the future is fluid. So it simply cannot be predicted conclusively. And it's like people who use tarot to predict the future. It's simply a misuse of the tool. The tarot offers a snapshot into what is currently flowing in our lives. It serves as an excellent reflection tool. The outcome cards do indicate a particular trajectory based on our attitudes and actions, but it's like saying, hey, this is what you're currently dealing with based on your own propensities and choices. If you don't turn from whatever is likely to lead to this particular outcome, but this outcome is not set in stone. It's just like a likely possibility based on current patterns in our lives. But because of this prohibition in scripture, there are many who would say that connecting with a loved one through a medium is of the devil. But it's pretty clear that people who get messages from those who have crossed are not consulting spirits. They're trying to gain, or like consulting in a way that they're trying to gain advantageous insight or
Mm,
predict the future. They're generally deeply bereft, and they just want nothing but validation that their loved one is okay, or maybe to say some things that they didn't get a chance to say in life. It's about having a sense of peace around the loss of someone that they love. So it's entirely possible to communicate with spirits and still trust in God, to live open and receptive to the flow of life without attempting to control outcomes. And I mean, we have Elijah and Moses manifesting at the Transfiguration. Spirits of long deceased men manifested visibly. Saul spoke with his deceased prophet Samuel through the witch of Endor. So the existence of spirits shouldn't be in question. But I do acknowledge that reservations around communicating with spirits are valid. And I think it's like with most everything, it can be used for good or ill. We live in a world of duality where there is good and bad in everything. And in my own experience, as someone who never attempted to connect with spirits in any way, I have come to see it as a tremendous gift in my own life. My grandmother found a way to communicate with us without us seeking it out. And though we were afraid of it initially, the communication has been continually loving and encouraging. No one is attempting to seize control through the communication. If anything, I see how very little control any of us really has as a
mm.
result of communicating with the other side. I'm able to trust in the benevolence of life more. It has deepened my faith in God.
Yeah, wow, what a great answer. And yeah, I sorry to start out on a challenging question, but I knew that, some people would go straight there, so it's better to get that out of the way and then go
Yeah.
into it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so one question I had is just how common do you think this is that spirits are talking to people, and is there other ways that they do that, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it happens as far as people communicating with spirits. There are various tools that can be used to communicate with spirits. Um, So, yeah, I would say it definitely is something that occurs. But I mean, in reality, we all have a team of light or a group of spirits comprised of our loved ones, spirit guides, angels, beloved pets. And they want to be with us. They send us signs that can help validate things for us or inspire us to press into something or even deter us from stepping into other things. And it's usually subtle things that would be overlooked if we aren't mindful of them, like synchronicities that we can either notice or we can write off as just mere coincidence. So if we're open and receptive to the guidance of spirit that is always flowing on our behalf, we could really benefit from it. I mean, the Bible talks about a great cloud of witnesses urging us on, and that's it exactly. It's a team of light urging us into our highest life path. So I would say most people maybe get like signs or
Mm,
synchronicities or things such as that. That would be, abundantly common for those who are open to it. As far as people who actually communicate like through, mediumship in some way, I would say that's less common, but it's not certainly not unheard of. I mean, there are plenty of people who do that.
right. Yeah. Yeah, so in your second chapter, you start talking about karma. What is karma?
Well, so a general misconception of karma is that people get what they deserve, like a quid pro quo kind of situation. But we need only look at the world around us to know that bad things happen to good people, and alternately, good things happen to bad people. And Jesus said himself that the sun shines on the good and the evil, and the rain falls on the just and the unjust. Karma is simply those situations and circumstances that work to refine us and bring us into our higher purpose. All of life is designed to awaken us. And when we understand that everything is energy, we begin to see that all of our actions, attitudes, thoughts, and emotions are just energy in motion. And everything we do generates a corresponding energy that comes back to us in some form. Karma is the cycle of thought that is driving our lives in a way that brings to fruition what we meditate upon, really. So it isn't about punishment or rewards for good or bad deeds. People don't get what they deserve, they get what they're a vibrational match for. And all of it is designed to awaken us. It's all grace, ultimately.
Mm. Yeah. So is karma within the Bible?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a law of the universe that and it's certainly found in scripture. I mean, you reap what you sow is a biblical concept rooted in the law of karma. In Proverbs, we are told, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. Our thoughts determine our reality and play into the karmic cycles. And one of the Psalms says something like, those who cause trouble bring trouble on their own heads. In other words, if we sow destruction, that's what we reap.
Yeah. Yeah. So some people might say, is karma a works-based theology?
Yeah, no, though it can seem that way. So it's easy to kind of misunderstand karma as doing good to receive good, which can lead people to think that outer actions bring particular outcomes. Like if I give to a charity or I tithe money to the church, then I'll receive money. But that's not how it works. It really doesn't matter what our outward actions are. It's about our inner condition.
Mm,
So if I'm tithing to the church religiously, but inwardly I have a scarcity mindset that leads me into a constricting or a stingy heart posture, I'll reap what I'm a vibrational match for, not what I pretend to be through outward giving. External behaviors or works are not what ultimately matter. This is why people who always seem so nice sometimes have awful things happen to them, or why people who seem so awful can seem to always be so lucky. And that's even a lamentation in the Bible. It's like, Lord, why did the wicked prosper? I think it was King David in the Psalms. But if we run around being nice to people in an attempt to be liked and viewed as important, we're really not operating out of a genuine generosity for others. Being nice to be liked is manipulation at heart. And what's in the heart is what we reap. What's in the heart is what determines our vibration, and that determines what we attract into our lives. So it's not about works. It's not about doing at all. It's about being. And that is not something we obtain or achieve. It's about letting go and waking up to the truth that is within all of us. And of course, when we awaken into right being, our outer actions will follow suit. But attempting to control actions to manipulate outcomes is putting the cart in front of the horse, and it simply doesn't work. We have to be generous. We have to be generous or compassionate, not perform seemingly compassionate or generous acts.
mm, yeah, good. And so it's kind of follow-up question. And maybe this is not a fair question, it's a really big question, but how does karma jive with the atonement?
Yeah. Well, that's kind of a tough question. When you say atonement, are you referring to the death and resurrection of Jesus?
Yeah, yeah, thanks for
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
hmm
Okay, so well, I would begin by saying that awakening or expansion of consciousness has always been available. We have enlightened beings like the Buddha well before Jesus was born. Karma is simply a universal law that applies to energy. It's about our vibration, which is tied into our level of consciousness. And so as we awaken, we begin to step off the wheel of karma. We transcend the dualistic thinking and become who we truly are at our core. And our essence is God. We are made in the image of God, which is to say, our essence is love. So karma is about our journey into awakening into love. So we have never been separated from God. We just believe that we are. That's the illusion that keeps people trapped in karmic cycles. So Jesus said at the start of his ministry, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And the word repent in Greek is metanoia, which literally means go beyond the mind. So
Mm,
awakening, which is the ultimate fruit of karma, was available before the cross. And the way I process the crucifixion and resurrection of Jesus has nothing to do with awakening and nothing to do with connecting to God. We are already immersed in God. Paul said, for in him we live and move and have our being. Well, in my view, the death and resurrection of Jesus was about eradicating death. It was about bringing life. And in the Garden of Eden, the repercussions of biting into the distinction between good and evil was death. And the human dilemma is not heaven and hell, it's life and death. So Jesus is the first fruits of the resurrection life. Jesus resurrected, and we will all do the same. It's like he opened the door into a new way of being that was not previously available. So it's about the resurrection body that Paul calls a spiritual body. Jesus manifested into locked rooms. His disciples didn't recognize him right away. So it's something other than this physical body we're in. But at the same time, he did eat and invited Thomas to touch him. So he wasn't a tangible body of some sort. I don't know. I mean, it's a lot to ponder, but karma is
Mhm.
just the way of reality. Everything is energy, and we're all interconnected. The death and resurrection of Jesus has karmic implications. The energy of the crowd that yelled, crucify him, the systems that were compelled to execute him, all of that is karmic energy. So your question was, how does karma jive with atonement? I would say it jives with everything. It's like the law of gravity. It's just an aspect of reality.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, your next chapter you get into talking about reincarnation. Can you explain what that is? And
Yeah. So, well, it's a chance to do life again. I mean, to reincarnate is to come back into the human physical form. This physical life is a world of duality. Um, and it is because of that duality that we have opportunities to awaken. We appreciate the light because of the darkness, and it's often through the challenges and struggles that we learn and grow. And we're all on a journey of becoming. And reincarnation is just a testament to the grace of God, really. I mean, the benevolence of the universe. We have unlimited opportunities to cycle through this life in an attempt to awaken, to let go, and to love. So reincarnation is always a choice, according to my loved ones on the other side. So they can stop anytime we decide or that we don't want to do it anymore. But as long as we want to continue in those cycles and try to get things right, we that it's an available option to us. Um, but yeah, we still have to evolve and grow whether we reincarnate or we don't. So we have to do our inner work. We have to arrive. But we're free. We're free to decide whether we want to do it in the physical realm or if we would rather not. So it's always a choice.
mm, yeah, as I understand it from reading, it's like on Earth, it may be harder and there's more lows, but that can, yeah, be a way to learn even more in faster acceleration than in the spiritual realm. And so that's why people might choose to continue to reincarnate.
Yeah, that can definitely be one of the reasons. Another is that, I mean, we miss physicality in some ways. I mean,
Mm,
according to my loved ones on the other side, they miss things like food, their favorite foods. They miss their hobbies, things like that. So it's a chance to enjoy those things. To enjoy the gift of life more fully, and then awaken in the process.
mm. Yeah. So what about places like India where they believe in reincarnation, but they have this really harsh caste system? Do you think that reincarnation leads people to think about, hey, you're born in this class of a system and you belong there and kind of not treating people well?
Yeah, I think that's like a distortion of what the reality of reincarnation really is. I mean, according to my grandmother, it really doesn't matter where we or how we only choose if we reincarnate. We don't choose like where in the world we reincarnate or like what class we're born into or or anything like that. And so in one of our conversations I mentioned, I was like, so does that mean that, if we choose to reincarnate, we could end up, somewhere in a third world country, like digging in dumpsters for a peach pit to eat? I mean, we could really
Mm,
be like, we don't have any control over, like, she goes, yes, but ultimately that doesn't matter because you can always awaken. So the point is to awaken. And it really,
mhm,
all of those other things are just human concepts that we get wrapped up in, like, um, class levels, things like that. It also seems that in Hindu thought, and I could be wrong about this, but it's a matter of evolving from like lower life forms into higher life forms. Would you say
Hmm.
is that right?
Yeah, that's why I think that they have the belief that you go from like plants to animals to humans, stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So, yeah. And like people with bad karma, like maybe come back as a worm or something,
Right.
and people with good karma get to come back as a highly evolved person, something like that. So, but according to my sources on the other side, that isn't how it works. People always reincarnate as people, and it's not a process of accumulating enough good karma through multiple lives until we finally arrive. They tell me that we're always ourselves in each incarnation, like our core personality, our true self is what is eternal, and that's what reincarnates. And we can awaken at any time. Each life is a clean slate, a fresh opportunity, and no one has an advantage based on past life accumulations. Each life is simply a fresh chance to wake up and let go of ego attachments. And we can do that anytime. We can do it right now. We don't need eons of lives to awaken.
Mm, that's good. Um, do you think that reincarnation could lead some people to lose meaning about our current life? Like, it doesn't matter, I'll just reincarnate again.
I mean, I guess that it's always possible that someone could view it that way, but life itself is meaningful. It's not so much that, Joseph Campbell said it this way: people say they want to know the meaning of life, but I don't think that's true. He said, I think what they really want is to experience the rapture of life. So it's about fulfillment, right? So
Mm,
we want to experience joy and peace and a sense of fulfillment. And we find that when we come into alignment with truth, which is to say, when we awaken out of those cycles of reincarnation and become who we were created to be, which is our true self, we find that sense of fulfillment. So life is deeply meaningful, but not in some external way. I mean, we experience meaningful life when we stop striving to achieve and accomplish and press into authenticity. So I'd say that reincarnation just gives us more opportunities to tap into that, to find our way into the fulfillment of our true self.
mm, that's good. Yeah, I'm curious. Did Jesus reincarnate?
According to my sources on the other side, no, he did not reincarnate, but Elijah did. Just as scripture says, he came as John the Baptist. So,
Mm. What do you think reincarnation has to teach us about ourselves?
hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know that there's really it's really just an opportunity to do life again and wake up. And I guess in the process of that, we might learn um, about ourselves. We do our inner work, the shadow work, like go inward and become more self-aware. I mean, because that's the point of it all anyway. But the fact that we reincarnate, I don't think that really teaches us anything. I think it's just
Mm,
it's just a mechanism. It's just a
hmm
vehicle. It's just a tool. It's just part of reality. Um, Another way that we potentially could awaken.
mm. Yeah, some things I've thought about with reincarnation is, you know, in reincarnation, we could be a male, we could be female, we could be this certain race, this different race. And so if we awaken to this recognition that we've been all these things and also these different lives, and sometimes we've been more ethical than other times, and we've probably done horrible things, we've probably done amazing things. And so I think it has the potential to teach us to not judge others and judge them based on these physical surface level things like gender or race or whatever, and also even judge them based on how ethical, how they're living, how they treat others, in the sense that we've all been there, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. I mean, if we come to that realization, I mean, the thing is, most of us were caught in these karmic cycles and these cycles of reincarnation unaware. Like we're not even
Mm,
we're not even aware of it. And even when we become aware of it, like cognitively aware that maybe we say, okay, yeah, reincarnation is the truth. And so I cognitively believe in reincarnation. It's hard sometimes to tap into the implications of all that. But yeah, you're totally right. If people do like realize the implications of an eternal spirit and that we are all one and the interconnectedness of everything, that really is life changing.
yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, like you said, there's a big difference between cognitive understanding and that integration into the body and living that out. So that's a good point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, you had another chapter called Devils, Demons, and Darkness. And you kind of talk about the devil. How can you talk about him in the Bible and how that figure got put together?
Um, yeah, so there is one verse that speaks of Lucifer. I don't have the reference in front of me, but from that one verse, a whole tapestry of, you know, a story has emerged. A whole story has been spun around this Lucifer, which was, you know, considered an angel of light who fell, and now he's the author of all evil, and he's Satan, the devil. According to my loved ones on the other side, that whole story is erroneous. It's not true. Um, it's the stuff of fiction. Um, the idea of a devil, I think, arises out of an attempt to solve the problem of evil by
Mm,
casting blame on an external being rather than facing the implications of evil within ourselves. But according to my loved ones on the other side, there is not one singular being that is the author of all evil. Like evil arises from delusion. When we see ourselves as separate from God and others, we're then able to commit atrocities against others. Against the earth. Even we set ourselves up and separate as separate and superior, and we divide, label, and judge, and from that fragmented view of reality we unleash evil into the world. Evil is ultimately an illusion, but now don't hear what I'm not saying. Evil is relatively real and it wreaks havoc in this world that we live in, but ultimately it will cease to exist as humanity collectively awakens into our oneness with God and others. Evil will be a non-issue. So yeah, it's like there is no singular being that's at war with God. I mean, you know, evil is just a part of our reality in this 3D physical world. It's part of the process. But one day when we awaken, evil will be eradicated.
mm. You think that people sometimes use the devil as a scapegoat for ignoring their own shadows?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it's much easier to just, you know, to blame a devil out there than to look within and see the corruption within our own hearts. I mean, everything is a projection too. I mean, people go about life projecting their inner shadow material onto others, and we do that even with God and the devil
Mm,
figure. I mean, everything is a projection, and it's about trying to um yeah, like maybe justify ourselves. Like I said, set ourselves up as separate and superior, and it's easy to do when you can scapegoat a devil out there or the other as the enemy. But in reality, um, the, the line between good and evil goes right through the middle of each human heart. I forget who said that. It's a profound quote. I can't remember now who said it. Maybe it was Viktor Frankl. But yeah, there's truth in that. I mean, we all have the capacity um, to generate and perpetuate evil, and all of us. I mean, and there, no one is exempt. No one is outside of the context of being able to make horrible, horrible choices that would affect others, you know, in detrimental ways.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, your next chapter, you talk about revelations and what it was speaking to or speaking about. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah, so the book of Revelation was written to a specific people in a specific context. It's a letter to the churches who were experiencing persecution leading up to the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 AD. It's also apocalyptic literature, so it's full of symbolism and metaphor. But the idea, you know, that Revelation is about some future end of the world or whatever is that's not correct. I mean, the letter was written, like I said, in a specific context to a specific people, and it's about what they were dealing with at that time. And so the destruction of Jerusalem coincides perfectly with what John was communicating. Um, And my loved ones on the other side have confirmed that it's not about some future prophetic apocalyptic, in destruction of the world or something like that. It is, the idea also like of the end of the world, that's so central to most Christian doctrine, and it's a
Mm,
misrepresentation and a misapplication of the passages found in Revelation, as well as other texts in the Bible. I mean, there's a lot of hyperbole in the Bible, a lot of like end of the world or cosmic implications, like the sun and the moon falling, and all of the cosmic language, and it's just to represent the rise and fall of nations. And I mean, that's been ongoing since the beginning of time. That's just the way of the world. Nations rise and fall, right? I mean,
mm,
everything is a death and a rebirth. I mean, that's the cycle of life.
mm,
So when we read those as like, a one-time end of the world, event that is just going to end everything. I mean, that is just a misapplication of the text. The end of the world is really just the end of the worldly systems, the end of war and dissension, the systems that perpetuate greed and violence are what will end. And the world's way of operating is what's going to cease to exist, not the world in and of itself.
mm. Yes, it's good. Yeah, so that kind of leads me to talk about your next chapter, talk about heavenly, called Heavenly Hope, and you talk about the kingdom of heaven and what that means. And I think that this is my favorite part, and it's exciting. So, can you explain about that?
Yeah. So, well, Jesus said that the kingdom of heaven is within, and he also said that the kingdom of heaven is at hand, which means that the kingdom of heaven is available right now. So it's not somewhere out there. It's within you. It's a state of being. Heaven isn't a place we go to, but a place we come from.
Yeah, can you explain a little bit more about like what do you mean by heaven isn't a place we go to, but a place we come from?
Um, yeah, so it's a state of existence within us. It's our inner attitudes, and the way we see the world, the mental narrative that's running the show. It's the way we process the world around us. It's like if you believe that people are trying to take advantage of you, and you have to look out for number one, and you have this like very defensive, limited, constricted view of reality, then everywhere you look, that's what you'll see. You'll see people trying to take advantage. You'll see people using you, and and you'll always be in that defense mode. But if you believe that the universe is benevolent and people are generally good, and they have, for the most part, good intentions, then when you look out into the world, that's what you'll see. And
Mm,
so our inner atmosphere is what ultimately matters. It really, I mean, this world of form is a world of duality. And so we're going to have challenges and struggles. It's magic and it's tragic. There's good and there's bad, and it's all, just rolled up into one, it's like multiple experiences on one continuum. Like the good and the bad, they're not opposites really. They're just different aspects of one continuum. So we're not ever going to be able to reach a place in life where there are no difficulties, where there are no struggles, where, or challenges. So what we have to do is cultivate inner peace. So regardless of what is happening around us, we have an inner peace, the peace that passes understanding, because we view the world in a certain kind of way. So yeah, it's about what's within us and not what is happening around us.
mm. Yeah, like our perception of the world and how inwardly we change, and that affects how we experience the world externally.
Yeah, and I would just add that when I say, heaven is a state of existence, what it is, it's love. I mean, love is our essence, our true self. That's We're created in the image of God, and God is love. So it's about waking back up to that, to becoming love. It's like in every moment, what is the most loving thing you could do? What's the most loving thing you could say? That's it. I mean, in a nutshell, that's what it means to enter the kingdom of heaven. It means to become love.
Yeah, yeah. So when Jesus was talking about the kingdom of heaven, he said it's now, but he also said it's in the future. Do you think that he was talking about the way the world would become as well?
I mean, yeah, it's like a healing from the inside out. Ultimately we can't change externals. I mean, the only thing we have control over is us, ourselves, our
Mm,
inner attitudes, our words, we even get to choose our thoughts or what we meditate on rather. Um, so yeah, I would say that while it is an internal reality first and foremost, once that internal reality becomes available, well, it's available to everyone already, but once it becomes manifest in everyone like a
mm,
collective whole, then the
mhm.
outer reality will begin to shift. So yeah, I mean, if everyone becomes love, if everyone does the most loving thing in every moment, then you wouldn't need governments, you wouldn't need police officers. I mean, like everyone would just be operating in a way where the external environment would no longer have
Mm,
war and
mhm. That
dissension.
would
And
be
yeah,
heaven.
so yeah, it would be. So it's a gradual unfolding, not an instantaneous event.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, this kind of leads me to me and Brandy have been talking and throwing around ideas for writing a book together. And it kind of is playing on this thought about the kingdom of heaven. And these days we're there's a theory about string theory and dimensions, and I wonder if Jesus were alive today, if he may have used the language of dimensions to talk about the kingdom of heaven. And I think it's really a good framework to talk about what he meant, and which to me is this non-dual way of talking about existence. I think Jesus did a wonderful job of using eternal, nonlinear, spiritual dimensional truths and making them tangible in a physical, linear way through things like parables and analogy, and also by his actions. He was very, very grounded in the physical and helping people, but he also did perform miracles. And like you said earlier, once his miracle of resurrection from the cross, and how he kind of played within the physical, but he also appeared out of nowhere in rooms, and sometimes people didn't recognize him. So there was this sort of transition, this play between the physical and the spiritual. And yeah, I think that, he talked about the spirit of the law, and again, like you just said, and how our thoughts and perceptions and how they also are a part and play into this kingdom of heaven or dimensional way of being that we can interact with and within ourselves. And also, I think it helps us transcend these language and kind of this dualistic thinking and make sense of things like paradoxes. um yeah, that's kind of how I see the book. Again, we're just in the early stages talking about and figuring it out. And so I thought it'd be fun to kind of just be like, this is how think about it. And I'm curious and how you also think about it.
Yeah. So, yeah, the idea of dimensions and that you hear that a lot in spiritual circles, and you hear that not ever like in Christian
Right.
circles. So, but yeah, it's the multiverse, the idea that there are alternate dimensions. According to my loved ones on the other side, that's true. So, there are alternate realities, alternate dimensions, and really all of that is out of my pay grade. It's beyond comprehension. But yeah, it seems that like through an expansion of the collective consciousness, humanity will be transferred into higher dimensions of existence. Like heaven is something we carry within. So as we integrate the dark and the light within, then the outer will be integrated as well. And so it's like what we were just talking about, like the future, like the inner leading to an external reality and a gradual unfolding. And I believe that will kind of shift us into an alternate dimension. Like when we transcend the black and white thinking, we stop perpetuating division and violence. And so the world is healed from the inside out. And the shift into a higher dimension is just like an outflow of the collective higher consciousness. But yeah, like, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of hard to think about, like with the 5D, people talk
Hmm.
about 5D reality. I mean, we're in a 3D reality, and like, what will the 5D reality be like or whatever? Yes, is that heaven? I don't know. I mean, heaven is available right now, so it's not some like future dimension that we don't have access to or availability in the now. It seems that 5D has something to do with the resurrection, like Jesus
Hmm.
resurrected into another dimension, and possibly 5D, where the physical and the spiritual kind of merged. Like you said, he was able to manifest in the 3D reality tangibly. He was in a body that was in some way physical, but he was also able to teleport. So it was something more than merely a physical body. And whatever that merging of spirit and matter was, that's what we're all headed into. Jesus punched out a portal into resurrection life, and we will all follow.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Thanks for bringing that up and explaining that. It's hard to do. And obviously, our book isn't going to be like, "Hey, here's all the answers. We have it." It's more of it's a contemplative exercise in what could be, or let's, try to make sense of it to some degree, and not to try to take a hold of life and understand it all, but how can contemplating this help us in our life and help us um interact with the kingdom of heaven and bring that, manifest that into life.
Yeah, totally. So, and there are some things, that I have learned from my sources on the other side that have really helped to kind of bring things into sharper focus, which is helpful to have a little bit of clarity on some things and help to kind of iron out a belief system. But ultimately there are things that they can't tell me.
Mm,
For one reason, maybe that some things I'm not supposed to know. And another is that some things are too ineffable for them to even communicate to me.
right.
And when we start talking about alternate dimensions and alternate realities, it's like it's mind blowing, and
Right.
it's too much. I remember one time I said to my grandmother, I was like, I just want to know all the things. Can't you just explain, please explain? And she was like, it's a lot even for me, is what she said. So I
Mm,
mean, even though she understands it, it's ineffable.
right.
So but I think, like with the book, like you said, we, will iron out what we can and kind of lay things out, like this is what's knowable, and then, maybe offer some insight that might help people to kind of ponder and wrestle with these things on their own. I mean, because ultimately it doesn't really matter. Information is helpful,
Hmm.
but if it doesn't lead to an experience, like your
Mm,
own inner experience, your own, lived reality, then it's useless. So yeah, it's about just giving people information in a way that might help them to think for themselves and process that in a way that might actually change their own lives.
hmm. Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I mean, part of dimensional thinking and God is that it's, beyond time, and um just trying to think about that is just mind blowing, because our language and the way we understand everything is within time. And so yeah, it gets really complex really fast. But again, like you're saying, if this book can help people into an experience of God and love and oneness, then it's well worth it.
yeah, totally. And in the book Through the Veil, which, like I said, is
Hmm.
releasing June 18th, um, I cover some, in a nutshell, basically, like what happens when we die and how that should inform the way that we live now. And everything in that book is enough for people to live a life of liberation, because ultimately it's not about knowing all the things. It's just about waking up and being fully present in this moment now, really. So I feel like that book does a great job at, kind of bringing things into sharper focus so that people might can rest in that and find a sense of peace and hope. But yeah, you and I will be collaborating on this next book, and it'll contain some things that I learned since I wrote that book.
Mm,
And specifically things concerning like the fall or what happened in the Garden
mhm.
of Eden. and then how that ties into the death and resurrection of Jesus. And I often have people reach out about those things. But there is an element of mystery, so it's not easy to think through or articulate. But I'm working on a document right now to offer to my launch team as a special gift. And so through that process, I'll include some of that in the book when we collaborate together to get that book ironed out. And I think the book will just expand a bit more into how alternate realities and other dimensions play into the shape and trajectory of reality. So I'm excited about it. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And I did want to say that that is one thing I noticed about your book that I think was a recurring theme that you really fleshed out well, was kind of talking about duality and oneness, and getting beyond the thinking mind, and explanation of paradoxes and stuff like that. And that's one thing I noticed, and I really wanted to continue on the theme in this next book. So yeah, I'm excited about that and looking forward to it. Where can people find you?
Yeah, so like I've already said a couple times, the book is Through the Veil, A Glimpse into the Afterlife, and it's available in paperback and Kindle on Amazon June 18th. And you can find me at brandyanderson.net. And all of my socials are on my website at brandyanderson.net. And so you can connect with me on Facebook, TikTok, or Instagram.
Yeah, right, is Brandy the Mystic, right?
Yeah, on all the platforms, but some of them have capitalization. So, but
Okay.
there are links on my website straight to my socials.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on, Brandy. Thanks for sharing your wisdom. Always enjoy it. It's great to be your friend as well, and have these conversations all the time. So I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me on here again. It's always a pleasure talking to you. And yeah, our friendship is yeah, it's a valuable gift. It can be very lonely in this journey. You know, a spiritual awakening
Mm.
can kind of isolate you from people. And so I'm deeply grateful that you reached out to me long ago on Instagram. And yeah, I consider you a very, very close friend now. And so, and thank you for having me on. It's been great to be here.